Okay, let's go ahead and get started on Chapter 11. Sorry to make you wait. I just forgot whether or not I actually had it started, so I wanted to check before I spent 15 minutes talking about it. Chapter 11 focuses on school curricula and standards. By the way, curricula is the plural of curriculum, so just wanted you to know that. But anyway, let's look at it. Here are the focus questions for the chapter. Be familiar with those. We want to talk about what students learn from the curriculum. There are different kinds of curricula. There's the explicit curriculum, and this is the publicly announced expectations that the school shares that it has for its students, and this includes the goals, the aims, the learning objectives. Different schools have pacing guides. They share much of that information with the public, with the parents. It's the actual courses that make up each student's course of study. And it's those specific skills and the knowledge and attitudes that teachers want the students to acquire. This is very public. This is what we share. This is what we're planning for. That's the explicit instruction curriculum. But there's also the hidden curriculum, and that's implicit, and that's the behaviors, attitudes, and knowledge of the culture of the school that's unintentionally taught to the students, okay? Could be positive or negative. If you're always griping about something, you're sharing that hidden curriculum with your students, okay? And so it depends on their day-to-day experiences at school and what they're seeing you do, okay? And what students learn may be positive or negative depending on the school climate and the habits and skills of the teachers. If the teacher's constantly hiding something from the principal, the students see that and think that's acceptable. So there's many things that, and then there are positives to it too. You show them how to treat people, okay, and how to work with your coworkers and how to deal with life issues. And so there's this hidden curriculum or implicit curriculum that students are also exposed to. And then there's the null curriculum, and that's the curricular options that students are not afforded. It's what they don't get, okay, that have an impact on their overall learning. And that's some of the pieces we don't offer or we don't teach that they really need. But we don't know for sure, you know, what impact comes out of the null curriculum. But we can kind of compare them to other students at other schools that get different options than they do and see who performs better. And then there are extracurricular or co-curricular programs. That's your music, your drama, your extracurricular activities, as you will. And these include, they're not academic, for instance, and so they are additions. And so this is a different part of the curriculum that we have. The co-curricular activities are viewed as having important educational goals as well. We agree that they are important, very important, but it's a little bit different than the content areas, okay, in that explicit curriculum that we have. And so we do know from research that students who participate in extracurricular activities do have higher grades. So it is a positive thing, and we do need to encourage students to participate when possible. And then what do they learn from the curriculum? We do know that we have the curriculum content and student success, that the content of the curriculum in our U.S. schools, for instance, it has changed over time with the needs of society and the diversity of students. Because technology is a lot different now, so that has definitely impacted what content's taught, how it's taught now. We can access things in a much different way and more quickly, so that has impacted the curriculum that is taught. We do know and recognize that the curriculum we have does prepare students for success academically and socially through teaching non-cognitive or soft skills as well. How to behave, how to react to people, even those unspoken rules, those fall in there as well. Another piece that they learn from the curriculum, that there's this mindfulness, there's this meditation of skills, and that's the ability to focus on a task at hand and drown out distractions. We're teaching them how to focus, and this does enhance their ability to respond to challenges in life or later in life, okay? Now, there's something called the Tyler rationale. You can read more about it in your book, but it does look at 4 fundamental questions to be answered when planning a curriculum. So if ever you become a curriculum coordinator or you're on a curriculum committee, these are the 4 pieces you need to ask yourself, 4 questions. 1, what educational purposes should be attained? Okay, so what are the students, what do we need them to attain? What educational experiences can be provided that are likely to attain those purposes? So if this is what we want them to attain, what experiences do we need to provide for them? Number 3, how can the educational experiences be effectively organized So how do we plan them out? How do we teach them? Do we teach them? Do we spend a month on this topic? Or how long will we cover these? What grades? Those types of things. Number 4, how to determine if purposes are attained. This is the assessment piece, okay? How do we assess and go back and look to make sure that they achieve those original goals or the educational purposes, okay? So that's what we need to consider when we're looking at a curriculum, and it's called the Tyler Rationale. It's a very good one. Now, there's a piece that you might be involved in at some point, and that's curriculum planning. There's the macro level, and that's curriculum content decisions that apply to a large group of students. There's the micro level, where the curriculum content decision applies to a school or a class. You get into the micro level a lot. Then there's also subject-centered curriculum that emphasizes the logical order of the curriculum for that subject area. There's also student-centered curriculum that emphasizes the growth of the students and what's developmentally appropriate for them. And then there's the integrated curriculum, where we look at how subjects are integrated together. So these are just different pieces to the puzzle and different ways to look at it, different lenses to look at curriculum planning. Now, we do have influences on the curriculum, okay? So there are social issues, changing values. I remember seeing, I think we looked at a textbook that came in, and we were trying to decide if it's one we wanted to consider. It was like from Canada, and they had students smoking in the stories and different things that we don't agree with here. And so that was interesting that the values were different among the countries, and that book and some of its stories weren't acceptable here. And so, but these curriculum changes are made in hopes that changing what the students learn will help them solve social problems or achieve local and national goals. Textbook publishing also influences the decisions again, because these publishers, they respond to these social issues and changes. Sometimes you can get textbooks that focus on the things you want, and sometimes it's hard, and you really have to look for textbooks that hold up to the values that you want or the objectives you need them to teach. But these textbooks and these publishers often do dictate the objectives you teach, the activities, the tests, the visual aids, and all that, because it goes with the curriculum that's bought, that textbook. When you purchase a textbook, you get the teacher's edition and all that in a classroom, and so the publishers really do dictate some of that. But you, if you're on a committee working with the curriculum, you need to take control of that and make sure that the textbooks you choose align appropriately. Now, I want you to be familiar with the term standard, and that's a level of knowledge or skill that is necessary to perform a specific task. And so standards in education, we have content standards, goals, expectations, learning results or learning outcomes. These are some of the terms that you will start to hear, so become more familiar with them. And these are statements that reflect what students should know and do within a particular discipline, okay? And so when you hear standards or goals, the college career and readiness standards, if you're looking for objectives, these are pieces that tell what the students should know and be able to do. We look at standards-based education. That's a big focus now, and that's basing the curricula on basing curricula, teaching, and assessment, of the student learning on rigorous world-class standards. So you want these high-class, high-quality standards for your students. And this idea that the curricula needs to be based on these higher standards is based on that belief that students are capable of meeting these high standards, which we believe today. And so we have specific content standards that we know should be taught. We also have benchmarks, and those are indicators saying what students should be able to do at a specific grade level. And we also have performance standards, and these are used to assess the degree to which they've attained these standards. So again, you do need to become more familiar with these terms. Be sure you write the terms down and their definitions so that you can study them, because you'll hear these more as you go throughout our program and move into the classroom. Standards are often, and most of the time, developed by professional associations like the International Reading Association. They have specific standards they've created. So these organizations create these standards. A group got together to even create the Common Core standards. Okay, and so they've done it based on specific subject matter. They include specific performance expectation, levels of achievement, things like that. And you do need to make sure that the curricula is aligned with the textbooks and the standards that the state's requiring, or if there are national standards, that alignment is very important. There's horizontal alignment where you look at specified grade levels for all subject areas. And then there's vertical alignment that's specified subject alignment of all grade levels. So there's two ways to look at that, and you want to make sure that you're aligning for both. And you often create, or the state creates, a curriculum framework, and that's the documents by the state agency that says here's the guidelines, you need to follow these. Our college and career readiness standards are our curriculum framework for the state, okay? We also have the Common Core State Standards Initiative that was created. You can read a little bit more about that. It has evolved. We still have the Common Core State Standards, but we've edited those a little bit. So we call them the College and Career Readiness Standards, but they are the original Common Core Standards with some edits and some changes for our state, okay? But it was very good reform. It has gotten negative attention. There are good, positive pieces and negative pieces. The assessment to me was a little over pushed for this, but I don't believe it's a bad thing, and I believe you need to learn more about the Common Core standards and us holding a rigorous standard and expectation for our students that we teach. Now again, there were positive responses and there were negative responses, so you can read more about those reactions. You can see some of the arguments as well. To me, I think we're past some of this, but I want you to be familiar with those because, again, these may be topics you're asked about in the classroom and later on. There have been some concerns about raising the standards, but and we've gotten some complaints, but still I believe it's very important. So you can look through some of the concerns. I do have some of those concerns, but I believe it's up to the schools, the administrators, the teachers to do it well, okay? And it can be done well. And here are some questions that can help you decide what should be used, okay? So if you're ever in a place where you're helping to raise the standards, decide on the standards, or even working with the State Department to create the standards, ask these questions, okay? And that's what we have for Chapter 11.